And it looks like we're joined by our next guest.
Well, you know, not stop. One in, one out. And
and
another
Tallycoin. All right.
Amazing.
Remember, you can always donate Bitcoin in the corner of the screen down there for Tallycoin. It'll make a little sound. If you donate too much Bitcoin, it'll make too many sounds.
So please don't donate too much. That would suck.
So we're joined by Paul, and I know we talked to you last year about CRISPR and gene editing technology. Yes. We had a little chat. So what are you up to this year? Same kind of thing, or
actually, you want to hold it or short?
Either way.
Actually, this year I'm talking about what happens essentially if we win. So in other words, if our decentralized economy spreads and grows and spreads and grows and spreads and grows, what happens to the rest of the world? I mean, if we get enough, the world changes over to our model. So what happens if that happens? What happens to the people who are old and the people who are sick and the people who, you know, are whatever, blind or deaf or whatever? And how do they survive in our world that we would like to create?
Well, I know we often plan for losses and we plan for what happens if we lose, but I think it's just as good as you're saying to have a plan for just in case we win. And I know I'm excited to say no more printing money for war, but on the other side I kind of realize no more printing money for disaster relief. If Bruce Springsteen has a telethon and people don't donate, well, we're not going to help those people from the flood. Whereas before we could just print that money and help them anyway. Is it someone along that lines?
Yes, somewhat. And in the end, it's really not a problem. We can do this really well, and we can do it a whole lot better than the system as it is now. Just for one example.
Sure.
Taking U.S. numbers, which are easy for me. The social safety net in the United States, they are spending 2.5, actually I think it's 2.7 trillion dollars a year. That is an unbelievable misallocation of money. For that amount of money, you could not only feed every person in the United States, plus give them all health care, plus build 8 million houses a year for the amount of money that they spend already.
Is it just bureaucracy eating it up, or what is happening?
Bureaucracy eating it up, you know, all sorts of things. It ends up in, you know, pools in the backyard of some, you know, government employees.
It's sweet to have a pool. I can't argue with that one.
And, you know, and crazy stuff, and it's, you know, complicated, of course, and hard to see, of course. But that's how much money they spend. That's not arguable, and it's enough to do all those things.
So how can we change that with Bitcoin and other things? How can we be accountable?
To where we have a decentralized economy where there's no boss in the middle who controls everything and says we will do it this way and you may not do it differently. That's a big thing. And then the other part of it is we get to keep our own money.
Yeah.
Now, you know, how well could you take care of grandma and grandpa if you doubled your income? Pretty well. And that was the condition in a lot of places 110 years ago. There was no social safety net. But
you would save for your retirement, right?
Yes,
you'd have an account, and hopefully the bank doesn't go out of business, and hopefully they're not involved in investment banking. We used to have a wonderful wall between the two, the Glass-Steagall Act.
That's right.
We lost that, unfortunately. No one seemed to understand what it was for because it was too long ago, and no one reads the history anymore.
Well, the politicians got a little few freebies.
Sure. They got some golfing vacations, and a lot of great stuff out there.
Right,
Trent Lott, really great guy. Yeah.
And campaign donations and all. Very, very legal, you understand.
Of course.
But, you know, they got paid off to change it. But there was none of that stuff then, and people did, well, there were no, I mean, there's always some sad case somewhere. Even in my ideal world where we have a completely decentralized economy, there's going to be an occasional lapse. And there's going to be somebody who gets sick and die, and we all go, oh my God, how did that happen afterwards? Right. But, you know, that goes on in spades now, and, you know, that's just human life. I mean, it's just, you're never going to get perfection on here, at least not in the next, 5 or 10 millennia.
No. I used to study a martial art, and they'd tell me that their top belt wasn't black. It was midnight blue, because it was the closest to black that you could get. And when you died, you'd be perfect and you'd have a black belt. But until then, they're like, we're always striving, we're always learning, and we're always getting better.
That's right. And the problem we have when we have new ideas, we're people who are used to certain things, are used to a social safety net. And then you say, oh my God, if we go to something else, we're going to die. My grandma's going to eat cat food. And, all
horse meat, cat food. It's very nutritious. Has a lot of protein.
I'm sure you could survive on cat food. I don't think I want to try. But, we fear so much what could go wrong, and we don't really look at what could go right. And there's really not going to be any problem with this kind of thing. There's going to be gaps, and here and there something will go wrong, but we're going to do so much better.
Right, and that is what Ludwig von Mises wrote out in his book Socialism. He proved economically that if you have one centralized party who takes care of all the resources and tries to allocate them to efficient needs, it is impossible. Why? Because if there is no private property, if individuals no longer hold their own property, then there is no free exchange, right? And if there is no free exchange, then there are no prices. And if there are no prices, we do not know what is important and what is not so important, and therefore we have no clue on where we should allocate these resources. So I do believe that decentralization and giving back private property to the people will take care of a lot of these problems.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things I'm going to talk about tomorrow is the fact that when you have the type of system we all live in now, and we all know what this is. We have a group of so many, couple hundred or whoever it is, big bosses and they make all the rules for everyone else. They punish anybody who doesn't keep their rules. They take everybody's money by force, and occasionally they send your children off to fight and die. But this is the same model from the Bronze Age.
Sure.
It's the same model. We can argue about the details, and we always fight about the faces, but the structure is pretty much the same from the Bronze Age. And here's the thing, this kind of structure, once they make rules and enforce them level by level down on everybody, they don't change. Whereas us here in this room, when we do something, we're going to do something stupid once in a while, but we're not going to do it stupid a second and third and fourth and fifth time. We get the feedback from our poor choices, next year we do better. Individuals can upgrade. The hierarchy doesn't. It stays. These are the rules. That's it. Those are the rules. Even if it changes once 100 years, it's once 100 years.
Yeah, it's not quite fast enough for the rest of us.
Yeah, and once those are in place, that's the way it is. That's the way the system works. You have to fill out Form XYZ to get this, and this is the way the system works. But if it's a crappy way to operate, if it doesn't work well, which, come on, how often does it really? It can't change. Whereas any individual can change on a dime. You can change at any time, and people do. And so to handle things a decentralized way is better from an information standpoint, information transfer. It's better because everybody can adapt when they have to. It's better in a whole host of ways.
So how would you change this with Bitcoin? Are we talking like a basic income here, or what are you looking at?
No, just let everybody do what they want to do. And don't stop them.
That sounds a little hard for the government to take. They love to have things. I know Max and I talk all the time about the kind of the end of Keynesianism, where now you say, well, the government should print some more money and put it in the economy, or they should print less money and take it out of the economy. And if we say, okay, Bitcoin is the only money in the world, they just lost their ability to print, and they also lost their ability to burn. They're both gone.
Oh, right, they lose everything. Because they're built upon a model of, look, let's face it, what is the model of governance that we all know on a daily basis? It is do what we say or we're going to hurt you.
Sure,
that's
force.
it. Okay, that's the model. And it is, for cooperation, it's difficult to imagine a worse model. And what we need is cooperation, because we already grow enough food to feed everybody. And we could grow a lot more.
Sure.
We already know how to build houses for everybody. We know enough how to build cars and roads and for everybody. It's not a problem. It's only a problem with cooperation.
We could put solar panels in the desert. Tesla had a way of creating infinite energy and wirelessly broadcasting it, but JP Morgan didn't like it because they couldn't figure out how to charge on a meter basis. They couldn't meter that free energy. So yeah, we could do these things, but why don't we?
Because we have these monopolistic organizations that are standing in the way and say, you shall do what we say and you shall not do otherwise, backed up by violence.
Mm-hmm. And if we take away the money, do we take away their ability to buy that violence?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
There was a great Rick and Morty episode where Rick changes the value of their currency from $1 to $0, and suddenly the army guy says, oh, well, I can get some army guys out there in the street, but what are you going to pay them in? And what are you going to pay me in? And pretty soon they're all just fighting with each other because the thin realm of civilization quickly goes away. When you're not voluntary, when you are by force, if the force evaporates, I'm the king, you're the king. Oh, who's the king? And then we've lost all structure, right?
Well, yeah, outside of the structure that we provide.
Sure, by cooperating, by having a basic level of civilization. You know, I'm not going to kill you, you're not going to kill me. We're working together now, we're a team. Other people disagree and they're at knife's edge, you know.
Right,
So.
but it works when you live that way. Yeah, of course people do stupid things from time to time, and of course there's a few guys who are real bad guys. But, you know, you can't take over the world like Joseph Stalin, okay?
Sure.
A bad guy.
Named himself after steel, always
Right.
a bad sign. Right?
Always a bad sign. Bad guy. But if Joseph Stalin didn't have this gigantic hierarchy that he could take over and end up killing, what's the death total for Stalin? 20, 30, 40
It's up there,
million?
but a little bit behind Mao.
Yeah, a little behind Mao. Mao's still the
Number
grand
one,
champion.
yeah.
But Stalin, you know, it's still 20 million people, okay? How many people would Stalin have killed if he didn't have that structure? I don't know, 10 or 12.
Yeah,
You know,
much less.
He
Yeah.
would have knifed some shopkeepers until finally he found one who had a gun behind the counter
There
and
it
shot
is.
him.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. It's the structure that allows this to go on. And most human beings behave pretty well. You know, you drive down the highway,
Yeah.
count the cars when you're a passenger, not a driver. Count the number of cars that are driving basically okay.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but just basically okay.
Sure.
And then count how many jerks there are who drive rotten.
Yeah.
It's easily 95% good.
Sure.
We just pay attention to the bad ones. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
easily 95% good. So what do we think about in a world where nobody's making anybody to do anything, but 19 out of 20 people who are, you know, who are surrounding us are basically pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's nobody who's saying, this guy gets to use force upon you. Okay? It's a better world.
Yeah. So, you know, you talked about, or you are going to talk about the consequences of when we reach this free society. But do you think that it will change all that much? Because in 95% of all our interactions, we are free human beings. Right now, here in this aquarium room, right, we are all peers. There is no one. There's no authority here, right? We have reputation, and that, of course, Thomas has been doing this World Crypto Network thing for quite a bit, so we all know that he's legit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know you, and you've been a public speaker, and that gives you reputation, but there's no forceful authority.
Yes.
So how big do you think is going to be the change in most of life?
You're entirely correct. In most of life, it will be pretty much the same. In the way we live in our families, I mean, we don't enforce, you know, rules like that in our families. You will sit down when I tell you at 5 o'clock, and if you don't, I'm going to hurt you. You know, we really don't do that. I mean, you know, you might say, sit down, Johnny. Johnny, I said sit down. You know, we might, you know, we have a few of those things. We have our better days and worse days. But in most of life, we're all, you know, it's just the way it is. It's just the real problem is, the biggest problem probably, I'd have to think about it, but probably is our money. Because it's a control mechanism. You know, they get to take it, and if they don't, you know, they know where to get it. Because everything is registered. Everything is, you know, you don't think about what it is when you register and when you know, get authorized, whatever, but what you're doing is you're giving them the information so it's easy for them to hurt you. I can get, you know, here's all the information, so if I screw up, you can come get me. And, you know, it's just a retro, it's a Bronze Age model.
So you would say that people are generally good. There might be evil out there, but if we're generally good, we can all work together, right?
Right. 98% of us are basically okay. There's, there's 2% that you're not going to really help. And there's, maybe another 12% who could kind of, wander either direction. But the other 86% are solid. And even that 12%, they behave mostly pretty well most of the time. I mean, most of us do. You look in your life, most people behave pretty well. We notice the stupidities. Okay, we all have stupidities now and then, but it's one day. Or it's, one little season. And then the rest of our lives we live pretty well. So 95 is a minimum figure for how many people are behaving basically okay, basically all the time.
And I think we can, if we start to aspire to greater things, we can take that base of 86% and we can work on building it upward. Whereas so many times we aspire towards worse things and we say, oh, we have to limit the evil or we have to have less evil. And I think that's a negative way of looking at it. If we have more good, the opposite of the Google slogan, I think we can really do something and get better. Whereas Google, they were always don't be evil. And that to me said, everything up to evil is okay. So you can push that line as far as you can. And now they've even changed it. They're like, whatever. We used to be not evil. Now we're just out for the money. But, we can build on this. We can make it better, right?
And we take our mind off this fear all the time. What could go wrong? What here? What there? This could happen. Oh, my God, terrorists could blow this up if we don't have everybody's blood type. And,
That's right.
Everybody in a cage, and anyone who's not in the cage is a terrorist. Oh, okay, I get you. And it's a life built upon fear, and fear makes humans stupid.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. And we don't need to focus on fear all the time. Yeah, okay, there's going to be one time in life maybe you've got to, push somebody or, God forbid, shoot somebody. But once in life, man, that's and usually not even that.
Yeah. But we really do have to stress the importance of self-defense, right? If you are being violated in your rights and your property, then you need to do something about that, right? And that is a justification of using defensive force to fend off aggressive violence. When you say that we only have to use this defensive violence once or twice, is that then a justification of living a more free life and having different types of I don't know where I'm going with this.
I think I get the idea. Ultimately, part of being free is having responsibility for things like this. It'll be much better in a free condition than it is now. But at some point, we're all responsible for each other. So if you see a crime in progress, let's say, well, everyone, it's kind of scary. Gee, do I have to run into an armed robbery? And I don't think I'm ready to do that. And that guy's really scary, and I don't want to,
Maybe he has a mask.
But the issue is, do something. Okay, whether it's to call your friend and tell him, or to throw rocks at the guy,
right.
or to scream, or whatever. Do something, not nothing. And if we do that, it becomes actually a web of safety. Right. Because right now, the only people who are allowed to respond to any type of offense are a fraction of 1%, and they may or may not be corrupt.
Yeah.
And what if the aforementioned 19 out of 20 people are going to do something? Maybe you're okay if you're 25 years old and you're a young, strong guy, and okay, maybe you want to run in there, But if you're a granny or something else, or an old guy or young or whatever, or just not feeling very well, throw rocks,
right?
Call people, raise a fuss, do something, and all of a sudden there's 19 good guys and one bad guy. He's not going to be a bad guy for too long.
And that's what I think we need to do, is empower people through positivity, that they can take action and that they can join things. I was just in England recently, and they have CCTV cameras everywhere and signs warning you that you're being recorded, but still there's litter on the ground. I go to Burning Man, they don't have any cameras at all, and they tell everybody if there's matter out of place or MOOP, you should pick it up, because if we leave anything behind, they're never going to have Burning Man again.
Right.
So it is kind of a forced threat, but people volunteer to pick up that trash, and they go around. And whereas England, it seems now that Benjamin Franklin quote just keeps coming back, and those who would give up security for liberty end up with neither. And we don't want that to be the whole world. We want it to go the other direction, where we can have freedoms and privacy and other things because we deserve them and because we're working together to have them.
Burning Man's a great example. I haven't been in a lot of years.
Yeah.
But it's a great example. Here you have, I don't know what the numbers are now. When I went,
It's
20 or 30,000
60,000. It's insane. But
who show up in the middle of a freaking desert. Okay, this is. If you've never been to Burning Man, believe me, it's the desert.
yeah.
And
If you don't bring it, it's not there.
Yeah.
No convenience stores.
right.
Yeah.
But you have tens of thousands of people showing up who behave really well. And there's no bosses there to beat them up if they don't behave well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, your friend might be.
Move the mouse to the top of the screen.
But it works really well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who show up who are doctors, who show up
Absolutely.
just to donate their time in case anybody needs anything.
And if someone needs water, they need food, or they need help, people will just give it to you.
They'll just give it to you.
And it was hard. They had to carry it all the way out there to the desert. They had to plan and stuff, and maybe you didn't plan as well, or it's your first time or something. But they will help you out there because, again, it's the desert, and you can be, we're humans in the desert together,
Yes. And it works, and it's worked for many, many years. It just works well. I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and it's the kind of example of a cooperative community, unlike pretty much anything since kind of like tribal days.
Right.
Like,
most people are pretty good most of the time. They're not perfect.
No.
They screw up. You have bad days and everything else, but most
you
people
drink too much, it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most people are pretty good. Not great, but pretty good most of the time.
Well, this sounds like a great presentation, Paul. Do you have anything else on your website or anything where people can learn more about what you're working on?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, cryptohippie.com.
Right, yeah.
VPN.
Yeah.
And then I have a newsletter. We have free articles once a week at freemansperspective.com. Just the way it sounds, Free Man's Perspective.
All right, great. Thanks you so much, Paul, for joining us. It's good chatting with you.
My pleasure, always.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
And I'm really looking forward to your talk, because the last one was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Harry. Let's go.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right. And I think we're going to bring in the next guest. We're working on bringing him in. Max, did you manage to exit full screen there?
I did exit
pretty,
full screen,
Pretty
no.
doable. I don't think it's that hard, but you guys were struggling.
Well, Mac is just nothing for me. I really need that Purism laptop.
It's
That's so much more
easy
convenient.
to do it on the Mac.